10 years ago. On the edge of a busy city stood a magnificent mansion. It belonged to a wealthy businessman named Victor Harrington. He was rich, powerful, respected by many. But he had one flaw that overshadowed everything else. He looked down on people who had less than him. Working inside that mansion was a young maid named Emma Parker. Emma was only 22 years old. Her mother had passed away when she was a child. Her father was seriously ill and unable to work. Every day, Emma worked long hours just to keep food on the table and pay for her father's medicine. Life was difficult. But Emma carried something inside her that no amount of money could buy. She carried determination. And a dream. A dream that would one day change her life forever. Every morning before sunrise, Emma arrived at the mansion. She cleaned the floors, washed dishes, made beds, prepared meals, and worked tirelessly until late evening. Despite her dedication, Victor never appreciated her efforts. To him, employees were merely tools. One morning, during breakfast, Victor took a sip of his coffee. Suddenly, he slammed the cup onto the table. Emma. She rushed into the dining room. Yes, sir? This coffee isn't hot enough. Emma looked confused. I made it only a few minutes ago, sir. Victor's face hardened. Are you arguing with me? No, sir. Then stop making excuses. The room fell silent. The other staff members lowered their heads. Victor leaned back in his chair. You people never understand excellence. Emma felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. But she remained quiet. Then Victor added something that hurt even more. People like you stay poor because that's all you'll ever be. The words struck her heart like a knife. Yet Emma simply nodded. Sorry, sir. Deep inside, however, she made a promise to herself. One day, she would prove him wrong. That evening, Emma returned home. The small apartment was cold and worn down. Her father was resting on the couch, struggling with his health. Emma prepared dinner and gave him his medicine. Later that night, while everyone slept, she opened an old notebook. Inside were pages filled with ideas. Business ideas. Recipes. Plans. Dreams. You see, Emma had always loved baking. Since childhood, she had dreamed of opening her own bakery. She imagined a warm place filled with the smell of fresh bread, cakes, and pastries. A place where people would gather and smile. But dreams cost money. And Emma had almost none. Still, every week she saved a few dollars. Sometimes she skipped meals. Sometimes she walked miles instead of taking a bus. She sacrificed everything for that dream. Because she believed one thing. A small step every day eventually becomes a long journey. A few weeks later, Victor hosted one of the biggest parties of the year. The mansion sparkled with luxury. Business leaders arrived in expensive cars. Celebrities filled the ballroom. Music echoed through the halls. Emma worked in the kitchen alongside the catering staff. As she carried trays through the crowd, she overheard a conversation. One guest pointed toward her. Who's that young woman? Victor laughed. Oh, that's just one of the maids. The guest nodded politely. But Victor continued. Her monthly salary is less than what I spend on a single dinner. Several guests laughed. Emma froze. Every word felt like a punch. Victor didn't stop there. People like her should know their place. More laughter followed. Emma forced herself to continue working. But inside, she was devastated. That night, while walking home under the rain, she cried. Not because of the insult, but because she realized how little the world expected from her. And in that moment, she made a decision. She would build a future so successful that nobody could ever define her worth a guy. A month later, Emma discovered a local baking competition. The grand prize was $20,000. To most people, it was a small amount. To Emma, it was life-changing. The registration fee required nearly all her savings. Her father worried. What if you lose? Emma smiled. What if I win? On the day of the competition, professional bakers filled the venue. Many had years of training. Fancy uniforms. Expensive equipment. Emma arrived alone. Some competitors looked at her and whispered. Others laughed when they learned she was a maid. But Emma ignored them. She focused on her baking. For hours she worked carefully, using a recipe her mother had taught her years ago. When the judges tasted her cake, something unexpected happened. The room became silent. One judge took another bite. Then another. The judges exchanged glances. Emma couldn't tell what they were thinking. Minutes later, the winner was announced. First place goes to Emma Parker. The audience erupted into applause. Emma covered her mouth in shock. Tears streamed down her face. For the first time in years, life had given her a chance. And she wasn't going to waste it. Most people expected Emma to spend the prize money. Instead, she invested it. She bought a small food cart. Every morning she worked as a maid. Every evening she sold pastries. Every night she planned for the future. She slept only a few hours. Some days she felt exhausted. Some days she wanted to quit. But she kept going. Customers began returning. Then they brought friends. Soon people were lining up for her pastries. Word spread across the city. The little food cart became famous. For the first time, Emma wasn't just surviving. She was building something. While Emma's business grew, Victor's empire began to crack. He made risky investments, ignored expert advice, and borrowed more money than he could repay. Losses piled up. Investors lost confidence. But Victor refused to change. His pride blinded him. One afternoon, he saw Emma outside the mansion. She was delivering pastries. Victor smirked. So you're selling cakes now? Emma smiled politely. Yes, sir. Victor laughed. Don't get too excited. Small businesses fail every day. Emma simply nodded. She had learned something important. Success doesn't need arguments. It speaks for itself. 5 years passed. Emma's food cart became a bakery. The bakery became 2 bakeries. Then 5. Then 10. Soon she owned one of the fastest-growing bakery chains in the region. Her products appeared in major stores. Magazines featured her story. Television stations invited her for interviews. She became known as a successful entrepreneur. Yet despite her wealth, Emma remained humble. She remembered where she came from. She remembered every insult, every struggle, every sleepless night. And she never forgot the people who helped her along the way. Meanwhile, Victor's situation became catastrophic. His company collapsed. Banks demanded repayment. Creditors took legal action. Eventually, he lost almost everything. Then came the final blow. His beloved mansion would be auctioned. The same mansion he once believed made him powerful. News of the auction spread quickly. Business people gathered from across the city. Everyone wanted the property. Victor sat quietly in the back row. The man who once commanded attention now looked defeated. The bidding started. The numbers rose rapidly. Millions of dollars changed hands in minutes. One by one, bidders dropped out. Finally, only one remained. The auctioneer smiled. Sold. Applause filled the room. Victor looked toward the winner. His eyes widened. Standing confidently near the front was Emma. The maid he once mocked. The woman he believed would never become anything. Now she owned the mansion. Victor could barely speak. You bought it? Emma looked at him calmly. Yes. Victor shook his head in disbelief. Why? Emma smiled softly. I didn't buy your mansion. She paused. I bought my future. A week later, Victor was packing his belongings. The mansion was no longer his. Everything he once valued was gone. As Emma walked through the front door, Victor approached her. His voice trembled. Emma. She stopped. Victor lowered his head. I treated you terribly. Silence filled the room. I was arrogant. I was cruel. I thought money made me better than everyone else. Tears filled his eyes. I'm sorry. Emma looked at him for a long moment. Then she answered. I don't hate you. Victor looked up. But I will never become the kind of person you were. Those words hit harder than any insult. Because they were true, Emma had no interest in living alone inside a giant mansion. Instead, she transformed the property. She created a training center for people with limited opportunities. Young entrepreneurs learned business skills. Single parents received job training. Students earned scholarships. Families found hope. At the entrance stood a simple sign. Never let anyone decide your worth. Thousands of people passed beneath those words every year. And many of their lives changed forever. Several years later, Emma stood on a stage inside the former mansion. Hundreds of students filled the audience. They wanted to hear her story. Emma smiled. Then she said something that surprised everyone. Years ago, I worked in this building as a maid. The audience gasped. She continued. People told me what I could never become. They judged me because I was poor. They measured my value by my job title. She paused. Then she smiled. But your future is not determined by your current situation. It's determined by what you do next. The audience erupted into applause. Many stood on their feet. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Emma looked around the room. The same building where she was once humiliated had become a place of hope. And in that moment, she realized something powerful. The greatest victory isn't becoming richer than the people who doubted you. The greatest victory is becoming the person they never believed you could be.